Well, hello there. Welcome back to the channel. My name is James, and here at 20th and 21st Movies, we are about all things cinema. I'm really excited to share my thoughts on a film that I recently watched. This is another film from Christopher Nolan that came out last year, and it's called Tenet. So I'm going to take a few minutes here to give you my thoughts on this 4K Ultra HD release. Tenet was released in theaters in 2020, I think on a limited theatrical release due, of course, to the pandemic. And so I didn't watch this in the theaters. I watched it on this 4K Ultra HD disc. So I have to say, this is a really fascinating film. This is the 2020 film directed by Christopher Nolan and starring John David Washington, Robert Pattinson, and Elizabeth Debicki. Okay, so what is Tenet about? Essentially, Tenet is a spy espionage movie that's also a brilliant high concept film with a trippy time-bending manipulation element called inversion. So first and foremost, I'll tell you, I think this is a great film from Christopher Nolan. I thoroughly enjoyed it. But one thing you need to know about this film, this is a film that demands at least a second viewing to really understand what's going on in this movie. This movie is highly complex with the high concept element of the time bending narrative that's going on here, with time moving forward and moving backward, and just the complex narrative that Christopher Nolan is presenting to the audience. There's a lot going on in this film, and you really have to watch this a couple of times before you begin to understand what's really going on. And even then, you have to kind of read up on it on the internet, watch YouTube videos to have people sort of break down the different narrative elements of this film before you begin to really understand, oh, okay, this is how this all comes together. So I really enjoyed this film upon the first watch, even though I didn't fully understand all of what was happening in the plot. So what did I like about this film? So first and foremost, I really liked the cast in this movie. Of course, John David Washington as the protagonist was really good in that character. I really enjoyed his performance in this film. Robert Pattinson plays Neil in this movie, a very important character in this movie that I really enjoyed his performance in this film. I also enjoyed Elizabeth Debicki's performance as Kat in this movie. You also have Kenneth Branagh, who is the main villain in this film. He plays Sator in this movie. You also have Dimple Kapadia in this film. She plays a character called Priya, an important character in this film. And of course, as in most Christopher Nolan films, you have an appearance from Sir Michael Caine. He appears in a key scene in this movie that really sets the stage for the future action in this film. So that's a very entertaining scene between him and John David Washington, so definitely check that out. Other aspects of this film that I really enjoyed were the cinematography, the musical score by Ludwig Göransson. I really enjoyed those elements of the production. This being a Christopher Nolan film, you know you're gonna have excellent cinematography. This was shot in IMAX and large format photography, and it's the kind of movie that really does demand viewing in a large cinema environment, like a big screen. And that's the one thing I regret. I mean, I enjoyed watching this 4K Ultra HD disc on my 65-inch TV. Nice viewing experience at home, but this is the kind of movie that truly is made to be seen in the theaters. And I can definitely understand the recent spat between Christopher Nolan and Warner Brothers over Warner Brothers' decision to release films day and date in 2021 on HBO Max at the same time that they release in theaters. Because from Christopher Nolan's standpoint, from what I understand, he likes to have his movies viewed in that large screen experience where you can really see all the aspects of that IMAX image fulfilled on screen. So I can definitely understand Christopher Nolan's perspective on that, because this is the kind of movie that demands to be seen on a large screen. So from a pacing standpoint, I think this film is excellent. I really enjoyed the way that this movie really kept things moving. I didn't really experience any boredom watching this film. There were some parts that were slower than others, but for the most part, this film moved along at a pretty brisk pace. So even though I didn't fully understand all of the elements that were happening, I knew that the character was going from one point to another to fulfill some mission, but I didn't really understand how one part was connecting to another. I hadn't connected all those dots yet, hadn't put those pieces together, but I enjoyed watching the action on screen and just had an appreciation for just the overall production values that went into this film. It's just an absolute spectacle to watch. So even though you don't understand it, It's a spectacle to watch. It's a Christopher Nolan movie. You know what you're getting from a production value standpoint. So I appreciated that. And I kind of feel like that's the way that people should look at this movie, is sort of appreciate it on a technical level, appreciate what is being presented from a production value standpoint on that first viewing. And then upon the second viewing, when you better understand how all the plot elements fit together, I think then you get a better appreciation for how special this movie is. This is an outstanding film for Christopher Nolan. I wouldn't put it at the very top of his filmography, but it is an excellent film for Christopher Nolan. And with Christopher Nolan being known as a director that really pushes the boundaries of high concepts and theories in the narratives of his films, this one really pushes those boundaries and takes it to another level. So I really appreciate him presenting something to the audience that's a little bit different than what people typically see. It's definitely a unique viewing experience. And again, it's the kind of film that I think you'll appreciate more upon that second viewing or that third viewing, when you really understand what the heck is going on in this movie. All right, let's talk about the presentation on this 4K Ultra HD disc. Overall, the video presentation on this disc is, 4K Ultra HD, looks great, okay? The detail looks great, great contrast levels, the depth, the clarity of the image is just fantastic. And given the photography and the cinematography of this film and the set pieces and just the vistas and the wide open spaces that are portrayed, I mean, the visuals are beautifully realized in this 4K Ultra HD disc. So I was very happy with the image. The detail was great, the picture was sharp, the contrast was really good. The colors were pretty rich and vibrant overall, although this is not what I would call the most colorful film in the world. The colors in the HDR came through pretty well. So overall, this is a fantastic image, which is to be expected of a newer film. This film came out in 2020 and is beautifully rendered in 4K Ultra HD. Now, from an audio standpoint, you do get a DTS HD master audio, a 5.1 track, and it sounds really good. I mean, the audio sounds great on this film. So the audio across the soundscape comes across really well in all the action scenes. The music that's composed by Ludwig Göransson sounds really nice on this disc. Now, the only thing I would say from an audio standpoint to watch out for is there are some parts of this film where the audio can be a little bit loud and overpowering over the dialogue in this film. So there are some parts of this film where you may have difficulty hearing what the characters are actually saying. And that's important because given the fact that a lot of what's going on in this movie is delivered through exposition and dialogue from the characters, you really want to pay attention to what people are saying in this movie. So I highly recommend keeping the subtitles on for this film so you can at least read what they're saying. An example of this is during the catamaran scene. There's a scene where you've got Kenneth Branagh, John David Washington, and Elizabeth Debicki. You have their characters out on these boats, these catamarans, and it's just loud and you can barely hear the conversation between John David Washington's character and Kenneth Branagh, between the protagonist and Sator. It's very hard to make out what they're saying in that scene. So having those subtitles on really helps for a scene like that. And there's a couple of other points in this film where you definitely would benefit being able to read what they're saying versus relying on having to hear it. Another thing I really like about Tenet is you see the influences of his prior films on this film. So you see hints of Memento, of Inception, of The Dark Knight. You see elements of those earlier films laced into Tenet. So I really like that aspect of this movie. And I'm sure as you watch it, you'll pick up on those different elements, particularly how the narrative is presented between going backwards and forwards in time. Some of the action sequences sort of give you a call back to the Dark Knight movies. So it's definitely a nice callback to some of his earlier films. So I really appreciate that about Tenet as well. So overall, I give this film high marks. I mean, this is a really trippy, time-bending, complex, high-concept film that I highly recommend. I mean, this is a film that really makes you think. It's very thought-provoking, it's very deep, it's very rich in its story, and it's a kind of film that just makes you really think about trying to understand what's going on. It's a mystery, just trying to unfold everything that's happening and really understanding it and understanding the concept behind it. So I think that's part of the fun of a movie like this, is that it's a high concept, intelligent type thriller that I think a lot of people will really enjoy. Like I said before, it does require multiple viewings to really understand everything that's going on in here. But I think the more that you see this, the more that you appreciate what's happening, the more you understand it, and just see the brilliance that went into producing this film. So I give this high marks. The 4K Ultra HD presentation from a video and audio standpoint is excellent. I definitely recommend that you have the subtitles on when you play this so that you can understand everything that people are saying, because a lot of the exposition in this film that's very important to understanding the plot and what's going on is delivered through the exposition of the characters. So I highly recommend playing this movie with the subtitles turned on. So let me know in the comments below, what do you think about this film? What do you think about Tenet? Have you had a chance to see it? How many times did it take you to watch it before you began to really understand what was going on in this movie? Let me know that in the comments below. Also, let me know, where would you rank Tenet in Christopher Nolan's filmography? Would you rank it near the top of his filmography, one of your favorite films from Christopher Nolan? Where would you rank this movie in the filmography of Christopher Nolan? Also, let me know what films you are looking forward to seeing in the rest of 2021. What films are you most excited that are coming out later this year? Let me know that in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time at the movies. Peace.